Now being recorded.
Yeah, hello everybody to first session in 2016. I'm happy to have you all here, and I will take over to Uwe, who will be, as usual, our main presenter today. And Uwe, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Hello,
Okay, go
everybody.
ahead.
So, I'm just sharing my screen. Hope that the PowerPoint is now visible. Okay. Today I want to talk about the topic that's related to execution steps with regards to, say, the non-process industry area. Perhaps one or other of you know that also procedures of the discrete industry supported by execution steps. And today I want to give a rough high-level overview, including a system demo, what's all about this topic. If you have a look at the first slide, you see, let's say, this circle, which is quite somehow similar for procedures where we use process orders or production orders. And things that we want to cover today is,
The leader has dropped from the call, and if the leader doesn't dial back in and rejoin, the conference will be terminated. 30 minutes.
Anna, I think you dropped from the call.
Sorry for that.
Okay. So,
Just continue.
okay. So, okay. What I want to cover today are those parts of the, let's say, order life cycle that are here, red corners and edges, which is mostly familiar to those of you who have already been working with execution steps in process orders. And so now we are going to check how this looks like in similar procedures when we come to production orders and standard routings. Okay. So, what I want to talk about? I just want to talk about the main basic steps, how production execution and SAP process management works for discrete processes, business processes, and also have a look at, let's say, the corresponding functionality of browser-based PI sheets that we named so-called electronic work instructions, how content is defined, how it look like.
The leader has dropped from the call, and if the leader doesn't dial back in and rejoin, the conference will be terminated. 30 minutes.
Okay, I have to speed up if you have only 30 minutes. Okay, we have a demo where we cover, let's say, the basic steps from standard routing to production orders, control instructions, and electronic work instructions. So you see that the main basic steps of such business procedures. And of course, if we have questions and answers, would be nice to spend some time covering this topic. Okay. If you have a look at what we name production execution and SAP process management, there are a couple of main objectives. And let's say one sentence taken from our SAP library is, let's say, describing most of the things that we want to do. We want to have an exchange of data between, let's say, the upper layer of an enterprise resource planning system and production level, which is somehow independent, and any other external system that contributes with data to the production procedures that we also handle by our ERP system. There's one thing which is quite typical if we talk about controlling or the production level from an ERP perspective. it is important to distinguish between three say cases. We have the execution of planned production steps in a way we have only interaction of operators, human beings. So we have manual data input, and everything in the production execution is done by the operators. In most cases, we have the mixed part, meaning we have operators that work on this production procedure and on the process steps, and we have machines, process control system or process logic controllers. And if we don't have any interaction of a human being in the production procedure, then we have the third case, which is a fully automated production procedure, which is then also where you have, let's say, the process control system, the PCS, as a communication partner that exchanges data between the PCS system and the business suite or ERP system. And now we come to the point, how can we handle data that is really relevant for production? And one idea, which is our favorite, is that we take the data, at least the data that describe how the production is executed in process instructions using our so-called execution steps. And here also, if you design XSteps or process instructions, you have to keep in mind who will get the data that you send down from the ERP system to the shop floor. This could be the operator, or it could be the process control system. And we have also the fact that we have a combination of data with the help of so-called control instructions. The control instruction is the functional equivalent for, let's say, the control recipes you might be used to in process order handling. And if this data is combined in control instructions, and then it could be sent to the process management. What's covered by the process management? The process management has functionality to receive the sent data. The sent data that is encapsulated in the control instructions. We could have two kinds of receivers, at least. One is the process operator, means the human being that gets the data and has to do say some activities and actions based on the data he got. And here the primary focus is on presenting or preparing the data in a visual way, so it could be read and understood by the human beings. And here we come to the electronic work instructions, which are the functional equivalents for the PI sheets, the browser-based PI sheets. And of course, it's also possible to send the data to the process control systems, to the external systems, and then here, in the same way as we do it with control recipes, send the data as parameters and parameter values. And now you see the pretty big picture. And the big picture, it explains the main functional blocks of process management. From the planning perspective, we have master data like master recipes in PPPI or standard routings in PP that describe how the production procedure should be executed. And at one point in time, if I want to produce a good or a product, then I will create process orders or production orders based on the master data. If I use process management, then I will bundle process instruction data in control recipes or control instructions and send it down to the shop floor. What you see here is, let's say, our famous browser-based PI sheet. What you'll see next is an electronic work instruction, which is some kind of different coloring and different layout, but from a technical perspective, both PI sheets and electronic work instructions use the same frameworks and the same functionality. We have also the possibility to provide information to the process control system you see here. And then when we get the data back to the ERP system, of course we have process messages in PBPI, but we also have adjusted or adapted process messages and process message categories for PP, if you do a component consumption or a material confirmation. And of course, everything that is usable in the process management for PBPI, like function module calling, like data exchange with using OPC, and providing automatic process messages is also possible for the process management part that is used by discrete production. And as a result of the data that is exchanged with the shop floor, you might get material movements. You might also get batches created and evaluated, and also, let's say, sending and providing data for different applications like QM or plant maintenance. So this is, let's say, the really big overall picture. So, and it gets quite interesting if we talk about electronic work instructions, what kind of content we find in there. And what we also know from the feedback of you, of our customers or partners and consultants is that the content that is also part of browser-based PI sheet is quite constant since about 20 years. So we have the reading of data and the reading of information in different ways. So you can also read attached documents, read web pages if you press on hyperlinks that are embedded in the browser-based PI sheets or electronic work instructions. Of course, you can enter data and information. This also includes digital signatures for approval of deviations or for confirming that the production step is now finished. And we have control data and execute calculations. We can also use the so-called manufacturing data access to exchange data between different applications. Also, which is quite often in use, is that we have a data exchange between an electronic work instructions or browser-based PI sheet with a weighing system or other work instructions that cover different aspects of the production process. And of course, also quite famous, the possibility to execute calling above function modules. That also allows you to be very flexible with respect to the requirements that you have to cover. And also, what we see later on in the demo, that you can trigger commands. Meaning, what we see later on, I'm doing a data input, and then after doing the last input of the data in a table line, this table is automatically completed. And such actions are possible using the so-called commands. With respect to electronic work instructions, you have the complete same set of internal, external events and commands that you can execute. If we talk about content definition, this is, let's say, the most challenging part. If you want to, let's say, model a business process for discrete or also for process industry purposes, it's quite important to get a common understanding which parts of this content that you have to model are reusable. Meaning, perhaps you have in your production a cleaning step that is happening every time in every product that you use. If you have such reusable building blocks, reusable content, it would be helpful to create so-called reusable building blocks. And here, in our say, a framework, we therefore provide the so-called standard XSteps, the SXS, that are located and maintained in a repository. We see this later on. Good thing is that such building blocks are completely independent from the application content, meaning you can, if you have have to define such a building block in the routing and reuse it later on in production or process orders, you define it in the XStep repository and just reference it. So for those that work with PPPI functionality, already have been working with standard XSteps, really nothing changes. So the basic principles are the same. Next thing that you have to decide, there might be part that is reusable and common, but there could also be content that's not reusable but specific for the material, for the good, for the routing that you are going to create, and for the production order that is then created as a copy of the routing to start the production. And here also one main step is that content that you want to cover in one electronic work instruction, you should group this content by using the same control instruction destination. Here also the functionality of a control instruction destination is equal to the control recipe destinations that already exist for PPPI process management. And of course, if you then have to integrate parts of the logic that is reusable, then you should link this content to the reusable building blocks, meaning that you create SXS reference nodes. So with respect to PPPI, nothing really changes if you work for more discrete processes. Okay, and it could also be, which is quite rare the case, that you have to, or that you want to add additional content in your orders. You can also do this by adding XSteps or standard XSteps in the production, in the XStep tree of the production order. So if you have a look at the right side of the slide, you see, let's say, also the main master data, the main transactional data that is used. No rocket science here. We have the XStep repository, we have the routing, standard routing, and the master recipe for PPPI, and also the functional equivalence, production order for PP, and process order for PPPI. So also with regards to the naming, in that what we call resources in PPPI are labeled or named work centers. So basically they use the same database structure and the same functionality, but you have different transactions to maintain work centers and resources. But in the end, it's quite the same. Some things are more specific, so some minor details are more specific for work centers in the discrete industry, and some the functionality is also more specific for the PPPI part if it comes to resources. But in the end, it's quite the same from a say architectural perspective. Same as I already pointed out here. If you have a look at the transactional data, control recipe and control instructions are here the equivalents, and also electronic work instructions and PR sheets. So when we designed this and shipped XSteps for discrete industry in enhancement package 3 the first time, we also tried to reuse as much as of functionality and content as we could, and the result is it really saves us some time, and it's also for those who work in the process industry area and have, say, some discrete procedures that could also be covered using XSteps and electronic work instructions. This is quite more easier as before. Okay. Also, I'm quite a little bit too fast. So now I'd say I would just switch to the demo. I'm going to have, so this is not what I want to show you. Okay. First of all, hope you can see the screen. This is one of our systems. with regards to the transactions that we use, we have, let's say, our standard easy access menu. And for the discrete part, you just open the logistics branch, then you go to production, not stop at the production process, but go ahead. And then you see here also there's something called shop floor control. And here we have the subfolder process integration, which then covers all, let's say, the things that some of you might know. We have the control instruction monitor, which is quite the extended version of the control recipe monitor. We have the work instruction themselves, CO60XT, and also process messages. We have this enhanced process message monitor that's also available. So the basic building blocks and basic transactions are now the same for discrete and process industry parts. Then let's go for how it looks like in routing. So I'll just get one step back. Okay. If you maintain a routing, you will do it quite in nearly the same way you would do it for a master recipe. So here I have a material. It's a machine, a measuring device that I created, and now I'm just adding the plant and see there's one routing. So you can just go a step back to the header. And let's say also with respect to the architecture and to the database design, we have the same key fields here with a routing group, like a recipe group and a group counter, and also things like text. So what I won't cover is sequences. This is something which is a little bit different from master recipes. Here in routings you can maintain parallel sequences or alternative sequences that you might use in your production procedure. In master recipes we have only one sequence, one main sequence that is not maintainable, but it's also existing. You won't recognize it because it does not show up there, but it's always sequence one. But if we check the operations, then we have also the operation overview. We have something like here the resource work center that is assigned to. We have a description. We have our control keys, PP01, which is nothing that is quite so strange, and also things if you want to record activities. You also have here the input fields, the unit of measures, and also the data that is also linked to the work center. So what you might have recognized is this tiny little ice cube. Of course, here we can navigate to the XStep trees. So could take some time. It's not the fastest system, and could also be that we discover strange things during the demo. So you won't get the effects, some of the effects in standard. So the first thing you might see here, also the header tells you this is the routing group and the alternative. You see our XStep root node that is linked to this routing, and here we have also assignment of a control instruction destination. So it's maintain the same customizing transaction like the control recipe destination. Here also I did a little kind of structuring. So we'll see later on we'll have some order data, so some technical data at the beginning of our electronic work instruction. So it's also referenced to one of those building blocks we will shortly have a look at. Then I also have one node where I say, okay, these are work steps that are covered in all of our operations. And what we do have here, we have our work center. We want to have a checklist. Also linking and pointing to a building block. We have a list of components, and we have a list of operation. Let's do operation confirmation. So the component list is something that will not be, let's say, displayed or created for every operation in our routing, because we have only a few. Also in some operations we have an assignment of material components, and some not. And but here for easier maintenance, I just decided to have one generation scope and also this building block linked to. Then, as described before, I have some operational work steps for painting and testing the device and for the goods receipts, where we have content that is not specific for all operations. And I also don't want to that this content appears in all of operations. So for the work step for painting, there's one machine, and this machine allows us to receive information about its status and the pressure. And here, as an example, I just set up a data exchange between an OPC server using SAP ODA and a plant connectivity as let's say the linking device. And during maintaining our electronic work instructions, we'll just then try to get the current value of the pressure. You see also here this XStep is assigned to this operation content, which is not the case here. We have only the generation scope. So the system will then detect how many operations we do have, and will copy this, let's say the content that's below this XStep, and explode and do the valuation of the valuation symbol during assignment to the operation. And also for the testing, I have a table where I want to record the pressure, and I will also have a decision point. We'll see later on what this means. And finally, our last operation is then a goods receipt. And here also I want to do a goods receipt for the things that I produce. So this is it from a perspective of routing. So I will quickly switch to our standard repository. So the building blocks, the standard XStep that we do have, are collected in the so-called standard XStep repository. Here you can maintain it. You can also do use searches. In our case, I just use a repository that is specific for this plant, but we also do offer those cross-plant repositories. We have one leading plant, and that could be also used in different other plants of the area. And what you see here, it's quite, let's say, similar for both kinds of production procedures, independently from being PPPI or PP. We have here the folded structures. We have also, let's say, the building blocks. Here we have a checklist. Perhaps you can have a look also at the component list. This is quite versions. It's version 2. And what we also see here, we have the next generation scope for all ingredients. I will have an output of the material and the description of the material. I will also get information about the plant's quantity, and also will have the possibility to input the consumed quantity, and also get information about the unit of measure. And we do have here information that's automatically generated. So I think this is PPPI date and PPPI time. I got it. Yes, the event date and event time that is validated by the system. And what you also see here, this is a so-called command. So if this command is executed by a formula, and if it's executed, then the process instruction that is generated is completed. So we'll just have a look at this. So we execute it, and this is the formula. This means if I input a consumed quantity that's larger than 0, which I usually do, if I do, let's say, confirm consumed quantities, then this process instruction will be completed. So, and also here, this is the PP process message for material consumption. You might know PI cons. So it's basically quite similar, but we have here in our case information about the sequence number that can be evaluated, but let's say more important are things like the order number and the reservation item number to do the material consumption. But also from, let's say, the difference between PI cons and PP cons are quite, yeah, say, there are only a few differences. What we don't have here is, let's say, a parameter, a characteristic for the phase, because discrete routings do not have a phase, they have an only operations. Okay, let's say the last building block that I want to have a little bit closer look into is the decision point. You see here also I have two versions. We have one which is now released for production, which I can then use in the control instructions. And here are, let's say, three things that we did. We offer at the distinct point in our electronics work instruction the possibility to decide how to continue. This means here in our part, if everything is okay, when I assign this building block to the testing of the equipment operation, then I can just continue. This means I do have a decision with a value 1. And then the next alternative, something is really not going well, then it's possible to use the central alert framework that we offer from SAP and to send an email to the shift lead. And this is if it's taken to decision 2. And here what's also in there, I don't want to offer all of the 3 decisions being able to be executable at the same time. I just want if the user decides to choose one of 3 decisions, then the corresponding logic should be active and usable. And the third one is we say, okay, we have to do additional work steps or work activities, and then here I will just trigger the rework, meaning I call a function module that then allows me to choose another SXS building block and automatically create a control instruction that then also gets all the content that has to be executed during the rework. So then we just go a step further, and I just want to create production order. So just use the transaction. We can also use the easy access menu for it, but I'm a lazy guy, and so we see CO01. I have to enter my material, so the production plan I chose before, and also the order type I chose before. So I use just the order type of the standard production order. What you see here is quite, from a UI perspective, quite similar to process order. I would say, okay, I know that 42 quantities are quite fitting well, and I will just also add a basic date. So most things are quite similar to those features and functions and fields that are offered by production orders. If we check our master data, we see, okay, it automatically took the routing. There's only one that fits to the production order. I did not create a second one, but you can also use production versions and select them. Also here we do have the possibility to have a look at the XStep tree. What you see also here, what you might discover is that now we have the context of the order. This is a temporary order number because it's not saved, and we have all the steps that are copied. So just save it. Okay, I'm a production guy. I forget about the calculating cost errors, and we have created this order. So what I'm going to do next is to release the order. You might have recognized that this icon to create control instructions is inactive, and it's also inactive because the order is not released. So I release the order, and now we are quite brave. We just create our control instructions. So let's wait a couple of seconds. Warnings, we can ignore these warnings because it's just saying me that one parameter does not fit to the definition, but it's okay. And also ignore this one. here we have a linkage to other systems. It's a test system, and some folks quite implemented weird stuff. Okay. Now, the next thing is I want to set my control recipes. And also the monitor for control instructions and recipes. Here we have this initial screen. It looks a little bit different, but it contains, let's say, the same functionality you might use to work with in CO53. I will just check, okay, I created one. And also we want just to send it. If you do it manually, that's fine, but in general you might use you automatically sending with the help of a background job. So this also works for control instructions as well. Okay, we can also check the logging, and it just tells me, okay, this is also the error that I got during creation of the control recipe. That is the parameter type that is different from the formal parameter type, but forget about this technical stuff. Everything is fine, so it could be sent to our destination. And because it's of type 4, means the result is electronic work instruction. I'm just also going to the transaction that provides me with the workload for work instructions. Also, quite similar to the original transaction CO60, there are some additional selection fields that are used for narrowing down the selection. You can choose the order type. You can choose also switch between the production order or process order if you want to narrow your search. And also I think some of the other input fields are quite similar as the fields for searching for work centers or resources. So I just hope that I find one. Expect to find it. Okay. Now here it is. I will just maintain it. It's in status new. So what you see here is a work instruction. The layout is a little bit different. We have a different coloring, but also here label production order. It's in change mode, and we have the header. We have also the badge that was automatically created during creation of the production order. The first operation that we had was one of the building block that was not assigned to an operation, where I do have just some data of the corresponding production order. Here are the scheduling, the start date, the start time, the finish date, and the finish time. Also just for the worker, who then can check if the electronic work instruction fits to the scheduling information that he gets. The next thing that we just check, operation 10, we have here automatically created the checklist of this work center, the work center, the operation. And now here have some drop-down boxes. I just want to check the power supply. Say, okay, I'm fine with it. I will add another line. Say, okay, electrical grounding is also okay. And now, in your opinion, I finished my checks. And what you also might have recognized, now these fields cannot be changed, or the field content cannot be changed. So the process instructions are automatically completed when I press this button. Now I have some components that I wanted to consume. And here I just added, I'm trying to add a consumed quantity. And remember, we have a command that allows us to automatically complete this process instruction once I entered a value. And entering value means I have to press enter. And also you might see this status message, okay, this process instruction here, this table line is then completed because of the rule. Same thing, okay, I say I need a little bit more pieces of the base plate. So need one more, just added a value, and also I needed one case more. Every time I just completed this table line, I also created a PBPI cons process message in the background, which then is sent to the ERP system and then provides information that the material quantities have been consumed. Okay. Next thing that's also part of this automatic generated content is I had 3 activities with setup, machine, and labor times in minutes. And now here I can just say, okay, I used 0.7 minutes for setting up the machine. Machine time was a little bit more than I planned, and also the labor time exceeded by a couple of minutes. And here also, once I pressed enter the value and pressed enter, then we have also the completion, automatic completion of this process instruction via command. And we also do have the confirmation of the operation, this activity handled by a process message that is immediately created. So now we just have this interesting part here. I want to check the pressure of my machine. So just hopefully my plant connectivity. Also, I just have to stop it. Just started the wrong agent. So it will just try. It could be that it fails, but you see this later on. Okay, it just fails. So we have does not one. Okay, so I just continue and wait until the server is up and the agent is up and running. Okay. And once I got the pressure, then I expect that this input field opens and can be then that the operator can add in additional information. Okay, so the same thing is repeatedly done for every other operation. I want to enter all the input fields in here. So what I want to do next is to have a look at here my table. Just want to add pressure. And here also the idea is that once I added the pressure, that I get another table line for the next one until distinct value of table lines is reached. And here, concerning the decision choice, you might see there's an input field, and I have the possibility to choose 3 options. Today I say, okay, I want to trigger rework, and to get the commands in here. And what then happens is one of the rework functions that we also showed once during the Adaptive Manufacturing Summit. So here I just can choose, say, let's choose something different, one standard XStep, and then the system automatically creates a new XStep tree and also control instructions when I executed this dynamic function call. So, okay, and what you can also see here, the process instruction is completed, and also the taken decision, the value that I chose, is then additionally shown and populated in this output field, so that you are later on able to identify which decision was taken. Okay, last thing that I want to do here in this UI sheet, electronic work instruction, of course, is I want to do confirmation. Here I just did not choose any command to automatically complete the process instruction, so I have to do it in a manual way. So you get the famous pop-up. Yes, I really want to complete this stuff. And so the process instruction is completed, and we have the corresponding PP prod message created in the background. So I'm just struggling a little bit with my plant connectivity, so I can't show you this data exchange. Perhaps we will have a separate session about this later on. Okay, last thing that I want to show you, and let's say in this complete process chain, is the handling of process messages. Here also we use this monitoring. You see no different labeling, naming with one exception. Here we talk about orders, so it could be production or process order. So what we might recognize here, we have a couple of messages that have to be sent. So don't see anything because really one of the cool guys, he set a filter to this sender, just delete it, and here they are. So these process messages we created during maintaining the data of the PI sheet. Just will have a short glimpse into 3 of them. Here, this is the consumption process message. We created one for the case of the machine. You see the material that is consumed. You see also the unit of measure and also other values that are automatically evaluated. Also in process order and also the corresponding reservation. We have the activity confirmation of the operation. Also with respect to the standard value of the activity. This was the setup activity that we used. We have also the value of this activity, 0.7 minutes, and also the production order. And here also see the PPPI sequence, which is not evaluated in the proper manner. Okay, and the last thing, also similar to PI prod process message with PB prod, you see the automatically evaluation of the material of a product that we produced, the material amount of material that we produced, 42 each, and also the batch information, storage location, and also the production order. So the next thing that I would do is to send the data, but unfortunately there are some settings that prevent me from successfully sending all of the process messages. But this is just with respect to the fact that it's a test system and we have some, let's say, strange work behavior in there. Okay. Okay, you see also that something really went wrong. So I did that, I wasn't able to update it, and this is also the fact why these process messages are still to be sent. If we check the log, and this is also quite similar to the things they are used to in PPPI, and we'll get also the logging the messages and also information. Something really went wrong, don't know why. So it's wasn't possible. The first time I tried to send it the second time, doesn't work. And also I think we have been successfully, no, just see this filter. Oh, sorry, delete this filter. These 2 have been sent. ppcons, and just to check what was then also some of the paint that are consumed, also in the units measure and the storage location, and the correct reservation number, and I think the other one is the base plate.
Uwe?
Yes?
I have a hard stop at 4 o'clock, so maybe we should let
okay.
a few questions.
Yes. Okay. So just 2 or 3 sentences. So the process management also does fit to the discrete industry. We also had an XStepCafe session about usage of electronic batch records for discrete industry, I think, and so this means you can also use, let's say, the process management for manufacturing devices or measurements, machines and medical devices that have to comply with regulated environment, which is quite fine. I will then just show you the last slide, and I'm open to answer the questions that you might have.
Hey, it's Maddie from Illumity. Thanks for the great session. I have one question. Like you did show that we could create a new XStep for rework, right? When you have rework, is there a possibility that we can pass some values from this XStep to the new XStep?
Yes, this in network theory, this would be possible. But in this case, you have then to, I used the standard function module that we ship as an example with one of our nodes. If you want to achieve this, then you have to at least extend the function, this function module, this wrapper function module that is called, And we have, let's say, another function module that contains the complete logic that also then has to be extended based on the content that you want to add. So it's possible. It could also, so what we also did, if you want to evaluate parameters of this, the XStep that you choose for rework, then you could do this, but this means that you have to program it in a way. So we did not do this at this level of detail, but it's possible and it will work.
Okay, good to hear. And at Illumity, we've been showcasing this feature, for almost 1 year. Like, we do a lot of pre-sales work in getting all prospective clients in the US and Canada, and we've been showing these XSteps for both the discrete manufacturing and process industries so far in all the opportunities. The only thing that that's really concerning us so far is some of the minor issues, like with respect to browser compatibility, which we're not very clear on what browser versions are recommended and if it's supported in Windows 10, Windows 8, Windows 7. So is there anything, any information in SAP somewhere where it can get the restrictions or limitations, to avoid, getting some weird issues during the demonstration at the client's location?
Okay, if I got it right, you might run into problems with electronic record structures and browser-based PI sheets with respect to Windows 10, meaning with Internet Explorer 11. And so if you use an SAP GUI, and that here these applications, they all always use an SAP GUI and sub-GUI, sub-Win GUI, then they also take the Internet Explorer that's installed at the local machine for rendering the PI sheet. And there was, let's say, incompatible change with Internet Explorer 11. And there's one note, I think I also published it on the XStepCafe, that the customers do have to implement. This forces then the Internet, yes, you might know this.
Yeah, we did implement that note. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I'm fine with that. If there are some, let's say, additional strange things that you observe during your demos, just let us know. And so we also be fine if the customers that run into similar problems, if they just then open an OSS message so that we can have a look at it. But most of the trouble really came from this incompatible changes, and also the let's say the needs that we force Internet Explorer 10 and 11 to show the pages in a compatibility mode.
Yeah. I did post a couple of things in the community, and as well I raised a high priority OSS message right now for some of the issues that we're facing, where we can. Yeah. All right. So I don't know if someone has experienced that before.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, there's a question in the chat.
There are two questions. Like, I can't while maintaining the XStep.
I think you sent the question in chat.
Sorry?
I think you sent the question in the chat.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Okay. We'll just wait a second. Okay. Is there something explaining the command in the detailed instruction level and about error message? So I'm not sure if I got it right. There is in the SAP library, if we talk about the command functions, there is an SAP library chapter that explains the commands under the events that the process operator, cockpit, and the PI sheet on also the electronic work instructions to use. So we have something, but I'm not sure what's meant by this detail level. Detailed instruction level. So also about the error messages. Perhaps we can also have a discussion in the Google Plus community about this. So who raised the questions can just stand up and give some more information to this topic.
Yeah, Eric speaking.
Hi, Eric.
Hi. It's very good to have these presentations. My small experience of XSteps is that you try to do something for your case, and then you try to find the functions, and then there are errors, and you spend a lot of time understanding and experimenting to find the errors. Even if you have a previous experience from PI sheets, it's not always enough. So
you mean when you create the XSteps and try then to so have try to do the function check and then get the error in the domain blah blah blah.
Yeah, it's because you I'm not the programmer. I'm just a functional guy, and I try to use it, and I realized that it's more like you have to respect certain standards or rules to be able to use them correctly, and when you make errors, you need to understand what you have missed out on, so that you can adapt your what you have set up.
Maybe sorry to interrupt here because I said I have a hard stop. I need to host another meeting right in 1 minute. So maybe you can really post your question again in Google Plus and in the community there, and Uwe will look at it, and then. And also to the others, sorry if you didn't get your questions through. I'm quite tight today. Just do the same in the Google Plus community, and we can also gather the topics maybe for another session then to have them. And if there's some urgent stuff, I don't know, Sue, you had something, I think we can also do it that way maybe. Okay, so. Thanks all for joining, and I'll stop the recording, and till in about approximately 2 months I will get you